Hey everybody, Pat Buck here. And before we start our first live show that we've ever done, we need your help. We just signed with Midroll and we're proud to be here. But we really need you this time. We're not just saying it. Here's what the deal is. In order to support our show, we'll need some help from great advertisers. And in order to find these great advertisers, we'll need to learn a little more about you, the people listening to this great show. So please go to podsurvey.com/big guy and take a quick anonymous survey that will help us get to know you a little better. That way we can show our advertisers just how great our listeners are. Even if you've taken a podcast listener survey before, this one is specific to our show. We need you to take it. Plus, once you've completed it, you can enter to win a $100 Amazon gift card, as well as, I don't know, maybe the big guy can give you some supplements. Maybe we can do a little raffle with that. I'm sure he loves that and loves the international shipping. Anyway, that's podsurvey.com/big guy, podsurvey.com/BIGGUY. Just do that. Fill out a little questionnaire. Help the show. You want us to keep going? Let's start getting us some a little moolah. Thanks for your help. Enjoy the show.
If you're anything like us, you like to enjoy a nice cold soda every now and then, but you hate the empty calories and the artificial sweeteners that come with it. With Zevia, you don't have to pick your poison. You won't feel awful worrying about the potentially harmful side effects because with Zevia, there are none. Zevia uses the all-natural sweetener stevia and doesn't have any caramel coloring either. The result is a delicious and safer soda with none of the nasty stuff. Zevia has 14 different flavors of soda, 4 flavors of sparkling water, and 4 flavors of awesome energy drinks. This is the naturally sweetened pop you and your family will crave. And Zevia is giving you the opportunity to try their products for yourself for free. That's right, for free. If you live in the US or Canada, just go to Zevia.com/podcast and sign up. And they'll mail you a coupon for a free 6-pack. What are you waiting for? Head to Zevia.com/podcast and get your hands on some ASAP.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us at the Mack Weldon stage at Now Hear This 2017. Please welcome to the stage Pat Buck and Ryback.
Feed me more. Welcome to Conversation with the Big Guy. I am the Big Guy, Ryback, and I'm sitting here with the one and the only one in the room, Pat Buck.
Happy to be here. This is our first live show, and I think you might have broke your microphone already. It's hanging off a bit, the head of it.
I apologize, Big Guy, dumb mistake.
You already botched this podcast.
This is pretty interesting. Earlier in this week, we were talking, and I sensed you were a little nervous, and I didn't understand why, because we briefly just mentioned I had the 2 wrestling appearances for WrestlePro this past weekend, and you said, well, we're doing this podcast convention, we're doing the show live, which was, great news, we don't have to do it on Thursday with a busy week and flying out and do it on a Wednesday, actually, then fly out Thursday for the shows.
Well, I mentioned it was a podcast festival.
Okay.
So you got to understand, this whole weekend has been, I promoted a show on Friday, and we had 2 big matches for him, 2 shows for me, full wrestling schedule. But I kept saying, look, we got this podcast festival. We've never done one in front of live people before. This is important, but apparently...
I did not even hear the live people thing. I'm just thinking it's a bunch of podcasters from around everywhere, Colt and Sam Roberts, and just we're at tables and there's Colt over there and Sam over there, and people are just kind of walking by like a convention, like the Comic Cons where there's all the different Jason and Freddy Krueger, and then there's Ryback, and Mean Gene Okerlund over there, and no, it's we're on a stage and there's people, it's a live show. Oh, that's why you were nervous. Okay.
Yeah, you thought we're going to be in cubicles and everyone's recording at the same time, like nobody's there. But
yeah, I completely misinterpreted everything. I was just focused on the wrestling. So this is fun for me no matter what. But this is really cool, and I'm glad we're with Midroll now and off to bigger and better things. So
it's great to be here on the Mack Weldon stage, and we're the greenhorns at this, which is pretty funny. So it's like, you know,
it's 1 year in, Pat. I mean, I feel like that kind of
we're accomplished now. We're vets.
I mean, well, it's 1 year. It's still over a year. So
yeah, but I still feel like in comparison, it's almost, you know, Sam's been around quite a bit.
Yeah.
Colt's been around for
in comparison to the other guys, they've been doing this a lot longer for sure.
So I think the booking of the show maybe would have made a little more sense if we were the opener.
Force them to stay for it because they're going to stay for Sam, and yeah, that would have been.
But we're cool. Thankful that we got a massive sold out turnout for our podcast here.
Yeah, no, this has been a great weekend. I was 2 matches this past week, and you did the traditional booking for me, and most of these promotions like to do is put me with the local big guy. You booked me against a Bear Bronson, 260-pound large man, which at this point right now I've been wanting to wrestle smaller opponents after my back and shoulder stem cell procedures, and in which we did do that last night with AR Fox, and I think to date since I've left WWE, that is the most fun I've had in the ring.
Really?
He might be my favorite opponent yet.
Like ever?
He's up there.
He's up there. Okay.
And not because he's just talented but he's very humble and respectful and just. He's so easy to talk to, and he has ideas.
So before we get into that, because I want to get back to that, because basically, and you explained this before, and I want to get into the Colt stuff, because it was pretty iconic or I don't want to say iconic, it was kind of a moment for you and Colt to kind of sit down and address everything. Before we get to that, and we talk about Fox, because you're fighting this, I don't want to say this image of you, and do I dare say limited ability kind of comes with that, where you haven't had the proving ground to go, hey, I can do this and I can do this well.
Yeah.
So this weekend was kind of a focal point. I can't wait to put the match up. Last night was incredible when you got to work with AR Fox and
Thank you.
And work with, you know, for the most part leaving WWE, and we're friends and we get drunk on a podcast and talk about stuff. But when we're booking these cards and doing all the wrestling appearance, all these different promoters, well, they want to put him with your local big guy. And there's only so much you can do with those matches,
and we
right?
talked about this with WWE. That was one of the things with me, especially my last couple of years there, is I got paired up a lot with Big Show, Mark Henry, and Kane on live events, and it takes its toll. And that definitely did its damage to me over the day, because you got to look at that card. I was one of the guys that could pick them up regularly, and they're bigger than me. I'm the big guy, but I'm able to pick them up and do these feats of strength. And you got to add on top of that, you know, the 3-hour weight training sessions every week, and then going there and performing. And when I'm wrestling these bigger guys, I'm taking a lot of abuse in those matches too, and picking them up, and that's a lot of pressure. And I love it.
You're known as strong guy. You have to lift
yeah,
these behemoths
I was picking up 2 people for a while, and so it was just one of those things that. And I think that the attraction is for promoters. Well, we could put them with our big guy, and the problem with that is, for me, it just gets fucking boring after a while, and I've done it time and time again. I like wrestling different styled guys because it allows me to do different things.
And I could say one thing too, because there are bigger guys, like when you were working with Rusev, who on the independents would be considered, you know, he is a big dude.
Yes.
But there's a different dynamic between that and the guys on the independents, because Rusev is so extremely talented, right?
Yes.
And a lot of these guys that may not be the giants, like as heavy as a Mark Henry or as big as a Big Show, but if you're working a guy like, say, a guy of Rusev's size, which are on the independents, they probably don't have that skill level, so you can't have a dynamic
Yeah, and that's
match.
not a knock on them. That's just there's a difference between the big leagues and the minor leagues. And again, I talk about conditioning all the time and how important it is. And that's one thing I've discovered wrestling some of the different guys since I left, that it's really a gamble of what you're going to get. And when you're up there and you're in the WWE, everybody, because there's a lot of money on the line, you take care of yourself and you make sure that you can go one way or another. And Rusev, again, is one of my favorite opponents. And a lot of these guys, and they're all good, and they all hopefully will have their moment in time. But the fact of the matter is, not everybody makes it.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge, and I like that. But at the same time, it's it's just you get over it after a while. Like last night was so refreshing for me, and Bear Bronson as well.
Sure,
because he was a bigger guy, and I asked him, I go, how long do you think you could go in the ring?
For a guy that, which I was a proud father as his trainer, CreatorProWrestling.com, and he's only been a guy that's 2 years in, and to see a guy that can compete on that level with you, and go, and you're not an easy guy to please sometimes. So to know, like, hey, this guy was good, and he's a bigger dude, and we had this dynamic match was really refreshing.
I have high expectations for things all the time. It's just the way that I live my life, and I set big goals. And sometimes I just expect things of people because of how I live my life. And that Bear Bronson, he goes, I think I could do 10 to 12 minutes and be completely fine for you. And we were the main event, and I figure when you're the main event, you want to put in a certain level of time.
Could be like a 20-minute matchup.
I feel like 15 to 20 is what you in the main event, you at least go that. And I go, all right, we'll give them a hard 10 then. It will be just to be safe. And we ended up doing 16 bell to bell, and he was totally fine, and I was so happy, like just great on everything. But last night.
And before you get to AR Fox, I think you had a taste of working opponents like that, but it was right at that time period right before you left, where you were working with Kalisto, and you got to those were great pairings because it was such a good dynamic. So it felt like right when you got a chance to kind of show, hey, look at these dynamic matchups.
Yeah.
But last night working this smaller, I don't want to say smaller, but AR Fox.
Yeah, and it was just when I left WWE, it was chose not to sign the contract that they had offered me, as great as some things were on there, and just more unhappy over, again, everything as far as creative, but a lot more than that and the other things that had gone on. It didn't feel like the right time to leave as far as matchup, because I really felt like I was hitting my stride.
So you were having fun in the ring, but weren't
live events. I was having as much fun as I ever was there. It was just everything outside of that, and there just comes a point in time where you have to know what you want. You have to take a chance, and I just was looking ahead, and I just knew I had to get out of there with everything that had happened, and I had to leave. It didn't matter. I couldn't stay, and
so now you get a chance with AR Fox to
with
go,
AR Fox,
an independent darling.
Last night, it felt like for the first time my first real independent match, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Because and I was telling Colt Cabana this at your show yesterday, that my back and shoulder, I was not expecting that to be an issue when I left. They were bothering me, and we've talked about this multiple times on the show. But when I got my ear and nose fixed when I left from injuries my first year in wrestling and left them alone for 10 years, I thought my back and shoulder would kind of heal up, taking a few months off.
So you figured, okay, you're a full-time guy. Now you're not going to be, you've made your decision.
I have 3 or 4 months off to get my ear and nose fixed.
And everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, and
it wasn't.
What happened, it went completely the opposite way, and I never felt worse. Getting out of bed in the morning, and just everything, I was like, what is going on? Well, that was around the point where I got to start. We're wrestling again. We have bookings. We have things already we committed to. And I told Colt, I was so unhappy because my back hurt so bad, and I just kind of grouped it all together with wrestling is hurting me, and I truly, and everything's been the focal point with the nutrition company and the podcast and the book and doing these other things, that it was everything always goes into wrestling still every time. I always put everything into it, but I was just unhappy, and then getting this stem cell treatment and finally feeling good again. And this is my back. I told you, it's been like 9 or 10 weeks, and my back feels amazing.
So you feel like a young buck again.
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten at 35 years old. I'm just thankful to be alive during this period where we have stem cells, rather than getting surgery and possibly having to start slowing down because of this lifestyle. I'm getting a whole new head start again, and a fresh start, and knowing what I know. And last night was like that first night, like the Ryback regeneration. I felt really alive in there, and just never felt more confident. And it's good to be in there with a guy.
How was the crowd? Did you feel like a dynamic? Like, we don't care. Did you feel like they were out to get you?
That's the funny thing about this is, so I feel like, and you talk about there's that portion of people that have that idea about me and limited or whatever, and I feel like the This Is Awesome chants, for me, that really, it makes me smile deep inside when I get those, because
And I've gotten them only a couple times in WWE, and they were on the most ridiculous things. It was
Like they weren't authentic?
no, no. So it wasn't. It was like a match. Remember the 6-man where it was New Day and Sheamus was in the match, and it was me and New Day, I believe, tagging. It was like an 8-man tag on a pay-per-view. It was random, but it ended. It was a bunch of dives, and it ended with me on the apron, the last guy, and then looking around. And then the crowd starts doing the feed me more, and I climb up to the top and just do a basic dive off the top to
they're just
everybody.
going bananas.
And everybody just starts chanting, "This is awesome!" I'm on the ground, belly laughing. That like this is all it took. It's just literally falling off the top rope onto a bunch of guys. But last night after we'd gotten well into the match, and the chant had started, and then they stopped in something else, and then they started again, and I'm just laughing hysterically. But I got a confession to make. Is one of my secrets now. I get the chance most of my matches now is after some sort of cool move, I just kind of lie down selling. I look at one little kid with my eye open, and I go, "This is awesome!"
Oh my God!
And the kid just it just every match. So I'm working them, and they don't even know it
I didn't notice that
until now.
But it was a great outing. It's nice to see, I think that now, you're probably going to be more focused on, or to us together, more focused on the quality of opponent going forward to really kind of, not just do, hey, the regular booking against, I think quality of opponent is going to be important for this time period in your life.
I feel the matchups with me and these guys it allows me to do a lot more that people again, and I've been in from developmental, and we all learn how to wrestle early on, and it's sometimes you have a certain style and you get used to working a certain way, and people expect a certain thing, and you can still do that. And what I really liked about last night with AR Fox is I thought we told a good story with it, and had it made sense, make sense, where it wasn't just a bunch of moves for no reason, and it felt good, and I feel like that's what in the feedback seems to be very positive from everybody. So I think opponents like that for me moving forward will be the best thing possible. And again, this is just fun for me right now, and that's why I just want to have fun, because that was kind of taken away for a while.
So last night went great. Today was, and I think it's going to pick up a lot of traction. I think most of you were in the room for it. You were on Colt Cabana's show.
Yeah.
And we've talked about how we actually have to kind of credit Colt Cabana because he's the one that gave me the podcasting equipment to launch this platform. But you today were on his. How was that? What did that feel like for you?
It was awesome. No, it was a lot of fun, and to me, it's never been a big deal. I could tell with him, it's more uncomfortable for him.
Yeah.
But I never, like I told him, I never associated him, even though it was his show. I just mature enough to realize he wasn't the one that said the comments, and just because he's friends with the guy, it doesn't make, I hate you because you're friends with him. That's ridiculous. That's just immature, and I would never do that. So, and I told you at the House of Hardcore when I saw him at Tommy Dreamer's show before, when he goes, "Can I talk to you?" And I didn't think he ever had to apologize personally, and it meant a lot though still that he did, that he was bothered by it, and because I always got along with him, and it is what it is, and it was good to be able to talk with him. His show, he's so much fun, and he obviously introduced you to this, and I told you when I left WWE, this was one of the big things I wanted to do, to keep myself out there, to let the people know the real Ryback. And because to me, this is another thing I was talking to someone last night about at the show, is in wrestling, it's very odd because fans, it's like if you go to a movie, you don't hate an actor for their role after that movie typically. You can watch that movie and suspend your belief. I feel like in wrestling, whatever the role that you play, it kind of affects you in other areas of your life. And we were just talking about that. And for me, where was I going with this? I'm completely...
Oh, I don't really know. I'm just following your lead, big guy.
No, but just that in...
So basically, I mean, with the whole that, people had, because of the conversation that happened on his show with Punk, I think that at that time period with the big following, that mixed with the way you were portrayed, people think that honestly in real life that you're not a good person and not a good wrestler, or is that what you're trying to say?
Essentially. It's disheartening that sometimes the role that you play, I think people take it so seriously, and it's hard for them to accept you as anything other than that, and that one of the reasons of doing this show was to kind of just show the real me, and it's more rewarding for me on that aspect, because in wrestling, even, and and we've talked about Cena before, but you have this image, and kids love you, but they love you for this image that isn't real.
Yeah.
And to me, that's not rewarding, even though I understand it, and that's a responsibility, and it's a great thing. But the things that they love you for aren't necessarily real. Mm-hmm. Whereas this is more rewarding for me, for people to know and understand the real me. And we have the fitness tips and the workout tips, and to get the messages with people, oh, we've lost 100 pounds, we've lost 80 pounds, simply by you guys just being yourselves and having fun and bullshitting and giving us some tips. That makes me feel better, but I can still do the wrestling and have fun doing it. And I understand what that means to people still. But from a performer standpoint, it's not as rewarding sometimes, because it's not real, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
and is it important to you as far as proving, I feel that not a lot of, because WWE and performers are so under control on what they can say and what they can't say. And you mentioned Cena. I'm not going to delve into all that stuff. We've talked about that a lot of times in the archives. But is it important to you to make people more aware, or just have that? I feel like what you do have that not a lot of people may know, and very few have chosen to spoke up, with the exception of like a Chris Jericho who recently just did it, the boys' approval. Some have been very vocal with, like, they've worked with you before. There's only really been one detractor, which came from the podcast with Colt, obviously. How much is that important to you? Is that something that really means a lot to you? Because,
absolutely. I have always, I think as a wrestler, having the respect of your peers is a huge thing. And it's a very competitive, cutthroat business. But I think if you work hard and you want the guys you work with, I mean, everybody wants to be liked. Nobody wants to truly be hated, I feel, in just life. You know what I mean? But and the way you do that there is by, if you are given a great opportunity and a great push, so to speak, is to bust your ass and have a good attitude and get along with people. And so, I've always felt like I had a great, even though I wrote alone and did the whole audiobook thing and liked being alone on my off time, but I always loved being at the buildings and around the guys, around the boys and whatnot. And I think having the respect, I think that's very important. And that's why I love Roman Reigns. Mm-hmm. And I think most of the guys there, I think it's a whole different dynamic than Cena. I think more guys, he works really hard, but he's always, he's very humble. He's very respectful, and he never walks around backstage with that I'm better than you attitude.
Okay.
So to me, and not to say that John does that or anything, but it's just Roman just comes off different. I don't know if it's from being raised in the business and whatnot. You know what I mean? And I've worked with him very closely over the years, especially early on. So, and the guy can go, and the guy's so talented. So I'm happy for all his success.
All right, cool. Moving on, we like to kind of talk about stuff that's relevant in wrestling, and basically just me looking at the dirt sheets and going, hey, let's talk about this, like we all do all day. So
speak for yourself, Mark.
Oh, please, you're on there too. And so one of the big things I saw this week that was kind of an issue, what do you feel about WWE doing Raw on Christmas Day live?
Yeah, when I saw that, I go, oh, everyone's going to hate that. Yeah. We, at one point when I was up there, I believe it was during the whole Punk feud, we had like 2 weeks off for Christmas, which was the only time that I was there that we had. It got shortened every year after that, and I don't know what it was before I got there, but I just go, man, this is amazing. We 2 weeks off, and then we had to do like 4 tapings in Pittsburgh, and the Pittsburgh crowd's always kind of, I don't want to say dead, but they're not as lively sometimes.
4 tapings?
And we had to do 4 tapings, like 2 on Monday, 2 on Tuesday.
Oh, that's got to be rough.
In the same place, back-to-back days. And it was pretty dreadful towards the end, but we all just had in our heads, we have 2 weeks off.
And by dreadful, you mean just the crowd energy, like how much?
Yeah, and again, there's only so much wrestling.
You
can only see a super kick so many times. Yeah.
So many super kicks and so many Superman punches.
But to be a performer, that's the one thing I told you. And you get up there and they put you to work, and that's how he makes his money. And It's a very demanding schedule. And
Why is that a thing? How can someone not go, man, this is the most important, dare I say, important day of the year.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be with their families.
They're already away from their families, and we've seen with different stories on different guys and people getting divorced. It is the hardest lifestyle. It's not like any other sport or any other thing because there's no off season.
And from a promoter, I mean, at the heart of it, I'm a mark. I'm a fan, and I'm sure with people in this room, even on Christmas, I'm like, I don't need to know if I need to watch wrestling. So it's like, who does it really benefit to have? Like, why is that a thought? Why do you think?
Because
that's a
I
thing?
think we've talked about this time and time again. The world revolves around making money. Everything revolves around making money, and there's good ways to do it and bad ways, unfortunately. And people in high positions and with a lot of power, they're looking at, how can we make money? How can we make money? And they're a publicly traded company, and they're down on certain things, and they're looking, well, how can we make numbers up on this? Well, we could run on this day.
Hey, look at us, we're on Christmas.
Everyone's going to be home looking for something to do at night, and so they just look at it and whether it was USA's idea or Vince's idea, who knows whose idea it was, but they're looking at it as a way to make money. And the problem with that is you're dealing with human lives and families who are already gone every day.
Yeah.
It's like there's only a few holidays every year. Like, let the guys have those moments with their families, and rather than flying out the night before.
Do you think there's also an old timer thing too, because a lot of the biggest drawing days on territories were Thanksgiving. I don't know about Christmas, but Thanksgiving was one of the biggest days of drawing. Do you think there's a little bit of that mindset at all? Like, hey, well, we did it. Well, they should be here working. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just think, though, as time goes on, you evolve and move on, and you learn from the mistakes of the past. And just because they did things one way in one period doesn't mean you just do it. It's okay, they did that. That was really, that was cool, but that maybe isn't ideal, and let's move on from that. And we have all these other days of the year we could run, and we could do 2 tapings the week before, and it's I just feel bad for the guys because they have no choice. No one can say anything there. Guarantee you, not one of them wants to be there.
So you don't think anybody spoke up, probably?
I don't know. I'm not there. I just don't. I would be curious to see how that was introduced to them. If that was Mark Carrano in a room like this, they do their little meetings and how they've done some things. It's, I wish more guys would. We've had things with another example, and 2 guys that aren't there, Stu Bennett and Jack Swagger. There was an issue before on a travel situation where on international flights that guys like that are 6'7", 6'6", they're tall guys to sit in regular seats.
Sit in a coach, and also it's a thing that we never think about. But some of these guys, and yourself included, like you, when just things never talked about with wrestling. But you're okay with sitting, but you need an aisle seat for room.
So I'm barely 6'2", so I wide length, it's tight for me with other people, but my knees aren't uncomfortable in the seat, so I can sit in an aisle seat. These guys are 6'7". Their knees, they can't get comfortable in those seats.
And they're not being divas. They literally, between their back issues, shoulder issues, they're scrunched up into airfare where they're, they're doing all weight stuff now. That's his one important thing. He's like, I physically can't do more than a 4-hour flight in a coach seat because I am an insane amount
he's in pain the entire, it's uncomfortable. And then if they put the seat back, God forbid, and like it's really frustrating for that. And I understand why they're frustrated on that for that. But we had a travel meeting for an international tour where these flights are 7, 8, 9, 10. We've had 14, 15-hour flights. And there was an issue where they book your travel, and whatever your seat is, you can't change it. Yeah. And they usually would book you in an aisle or something. But the guys that have points, you're able to go in there. Usually once your flight is booked, you're able to go in there and change your seat to if there's something better, or if you want to use your points and get upgraded. So guys would always go change their seats and get better seats and whatnot. But then WWE would claim that it messed up the entire system. And like one time I ended up getting switched from an aisle seat to a middle seat. And I don't know how.
Why does that have an effect?
It shouldn't have any effect. It was the weirdest thing ever. But I remember, and there was a meeting with Mark Carrano, and it was like Stu Bennett and Swagger, Jack Swagger, and I believe Luke Harper finally spoke up and it was a great thing. But the three guys that are all 6'6", 6'7",
that are in pain,
that are directly in pain, and again, and they made such valid points, and then like they just afterwards like, why do you do that to it? Like, why do you don't do that to me?
How dare you speak up?
Like you can't win. They're in a no-win position, and if you do anything to get out of line or to say anything, it's like, well, we have these 300 guys in NXT that will do anything to be on TV and be
sure,
and rightfully so,
and they will, and then they'll fall victim to that,
and then they realize, it's just it's a never-ending factory line of guys that want that until they realize what it is. But
sure,
yeah.
And there's other things we can talk about. I know with here we're kind of in a condensed form. We want to keep you guys here all day. The only other thing for a wrestling thing is things going on with Global Force, which is now Impact, which we don't know if it's Global Force again. Which everything seems to be with Jeff Jarrett taking in a leave of absence, which we don't know that situation, but there are different people in charge. So I don't know your thoughts on the whole thing or any commentary with that, because that was a significant thing where there's not so many big wrestling companies anymore. We got New Japan, we got WWE, we got Ring of Honor, and we have Impact. So we when things happen there, it is kind of substantial that the head of the company is now no longer there on a leave of absence. So what do we do now?
Yeah, I just spoke with Jeff on the phone, maybe a month ago, and just kind of just a friendly conversation over things. And first, I hope everything is all right on his end, and that
I do too.
That whatever's going on, and that everything is cool. And it's just I wish they could catch a break. And
it seems like a series of unfortunate events.
It's a never-ending story. It's one thing after the other. But I think that through negative sometimes, and whether Jeff comes back or not, and I would assume he does, but whoever's in control now has a huge opportunity to do their thing.
And I think exactly. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that is just I think that whoever's now in control, and Anthem obviously financially is in a very good position, and they seem they're doing the Global Force, the network, which is very promising, I think, and a step in the right direction, especially for the future. That whoever this guy is, he can now. It's somebody new. And let's see what they can do. And I just wish it wasn't one thing after the other. But they seem to be with Eli Drake and
taking a chance, a smart chance.
Which you need to do. You need to build new talent.
And he was the right call.
You need a blend of everything. Yeah.
And I just know from outside looking in and my association with them, I think that now, if anything, that Sanjay Dutt, if being a part and be able to make more calls while Jeff's on his leave, it's going to be for a guy that's worked. Probably one of the most well-traveled independent wrestlers, and having his mindset and just talking with him all the time. If he's at the helm, being able to actually make the call instead of suggesting the call to make, I think that company, even though all this negative detractions have been on them time after time, this could be the time period where if we just give them a little bit more of a chance, something will happen. I don't think that there are plans of. I know there's a report out there. They're trying to sell. That came from one Sports Illustrated article with no facts, and I think they just need, it's the storm has happened, and now I think hopefully they're on an uphill battle because we need them to do well. We need companies to do as best as they can.
For wrestlers, we want as many places to succeed as possible, because one that creates competition. It just makes it better for everybody. It's more places to work. It's more opportunities for guys, and I just think this is their chance to really put the pedal to the metal and go for it. And I want them to succeed. I want them to succeed more than anybody, just for wrestling in general, and because I think that makes WWE put them on their toes. And I think that makes Vince at his best, and we've all seen it and it just that competitive environment rather than creating competition from within when you have that outside threat.
We just need that dynamic of the boys having options where we can make wrestling interesting again, and
that's why a lot of guys are afraid to leave.
There's nowhere else to go.
It's the one thing guys used to leave all the time. and it's you need to leave. You
Yeah.
need to get it. You get
stale, or you just
Yeah.
you just need a different mindset, and it's refreshing. I mean, we can all remember half of wrestling was
those
watching
surprise.
who's
things.
going to show up,
Yeah.
who's going to leave. Oh my God, did you hear about this? And we don't have that anymore.
We don't have it at all. That was the one thing to tune in, and we kind of were spoiled with that. I think it was so much that period during that whole Attitude Era and all that. But that's what having competition does. Guys leave, and it naturally creates these moments for the future.
of organic things
Yeah.
where we just our business, which is not. Hate to break it, we're not really approved by the mainstream as much as we want to pretend we are, but it just gets what we do in that light so much more, and it's just so much. We need more of it.
Absolutely.
badly.
Couldn't agree anymore. And I was going to ask you this week, I want to say I was caught a little bit of Raw. The one thing, Big Show and Braun Strowman, I thought I don't know if you caught the cage match with them.
I did.
And I just think it was, I have a lot of respect for Big Show, and I've worked with him many, many, many times. And we've butted heads at times, and he's a big, large man to butt heads with, and which I don't want to be happening too often. But he was always so good with me at different things, and I know like he's. If you remember years ago, fans were chanting, "Please retire."
Yeah.
I felt so bad for him because I was out there for some of that when in mixed tag matches, and I could tell how bad it hurt him because he's given his entire life to pro wrestling, and sometimes fans could be so.
And he is. I know this could be up for argument.
The greatest giant of all time.
The greatest giant of all time.
Absolutely.
And people don't understand that. It's not what he. It's the way he was used.
And
It's the way
he's-
you
yeah.
can't. And you can only do so much as a giant. That guy bumping around, and he's a workhorse.
He's
as a giant.
probably the most loyal employee, and not being an employee, but most loyal independent contractor they've ever had. And if you remember, like Vince dressed him up in the baby diapers he's done everything they've ever asked of him.
Yeah.
And he's spoken up at times and done different things, but I just thought it was. I know he's really beat up. He's not an old man by any means. but
Apparently, he needs a new hip or something. He's
and
having
I
some
heard that
hip
too. I
issues.
remember his hips always gave him problems, in his knees and his back. And I always thought it was really cool when I worked him on live events. He would volunteer. One, he always took the shell shock, in which he goes up for that, lighter than guys a couple 100 pounds than him sometimes.
So how does that work? There's a legit giant who's whatever between 400 or 500 pounds, and I don't think a lot of people watching understand this. That there's guys you can pick up that are heavier that feel lighter because they're more agile in getting in positions.
Yeah.
Then there's guys that are legitimate. There's been times I've picked up 150-pound guys and they feel like they're 300 pounds.
Yeah, and like Hornswoggle, he's the biggest, smallest guy in the world, who is a small person, but he's just so bottom heavy,
Made of stone.
just made of stone, and where he's really, really heavy. But Big Show, you're dealing with that much weight. That weight is real.
Mm-hmm.
But he understands how big he is, and he's been used to being that big his entire life. And the guy, he's always been athletic, no matter what he's looked like.
Yeah.
And he has just always been able to. I never was worried with him on any of it. And there was even one time on a live event where we went to do it and we mistimed it, and we went up and came back down. And he just stayed perfectly calm and let me do my thing because he knew it was on my timing.
Because when you relax, you
Yeah,
can kinda-
rather than some guys will freak out and start getting the happy feet. Boom, redid it up perfectly.
Perfect.
Everything was fine. But he always volunteered to like go to the top and let me press him off the top and take the
we
Ric
take the
Flair
Flair
bump
bump?
off the top,
Oh wow.
which is not any. When you do that, you rock your entire back and hips and spine.
I teach that bump a lot often in my class, and there's people a third of his size that have issues with that, or it's painful, or they don't know how to post, and it's not a comfortable thing.
No, but for me, it was just always really cool because with him, I know that's one of those things that he's probably going to have a fucked up week, like being
He's gonna hurt
a little hurt for anybody. He was always so cool. So I'm just happy for him and doing the top rope elbow, and that's why I feel like he is having surgery. He's like, oh, I'm already screwed up. I might as well. And I was watching that. For me, I was just thinking of the please retire chants, and just like, it's about time you guys give this guy the credit.
Respect, yeah.
But it fucking sucks. He has to do a top rope elbow for you to think Like the guy was doing top rope drop kicks his first year in wrestling, but like it's just this is the way wrestling fans are. But it's like doing the elbow off the top doesn't make him awesome. He's awesome because everything he's done up to this point.
The line we want to say: no one hates wrestling more than wrestling.
Nobody
fans.
hates wrestling as much as wrestling fans, guys. It's the absolute truth. Did I tell you I had a great weekend? The big guy dating stories, we've kind of we toned those down for a while.
Yeah.
With everything going on with me, but I mentioned on last week's show that a girl I've been talking to, I actually met her at WWE Fan Access.
Well, we're on the search for Mrs. Big Guys, I like to say.
I look at this as I've had a hell of a singles run throughout my life, and I feel like there comes a point where I'm 35 now that you have to settle down. But at the same time, I've not necessarily met the right woman, which again could be just the lifestyle and all that. So I figure while I'm off TV and I have all this stuff and I'm organizing everything in my life, that let's try harder.
You're trying to find. It's not about the quantity. It's about the quality.
Yeah,
you want that one.
It's still a lot of reps of meeting different people and but it's going on dates way more than I'm used to going on dates and just trying and just to see if there's something there outside of just the physical aspect of it. Because I think, obviously, being married, that's a huge decision with your life.
Sure.
And I feel like a lot of people, sometimes, if you're not with the right person, but you're with them at the time being, and you guys do have kids, it can get more complicated as time goes on, and you have even more to lose as time goes on. So I feel like giving yourself the best chance possible of just going into it, trying, and you're never going to find the perfect person or anything of that nature, but just somebody you get along with.
All right, so has a big guy found that person, or what's going on here?
So I flew out this a beautiful woman from Orlando
So
who
fly outs.
flew her out.
How does this happen?
I met her at Fan Access years ago, and we just were friends. And
Was she a fan?
No, doesn't
Okay.
know anything about wrestling, but she's like an independent contractor. Also, she does a lot of car shows and things of that. But she would do the Fan Access at WrestleMania.
So she's a civilian, as we like to say.
Which huge credit for me.
Nothing against women
Knew
in wrestling.
nothing about me.
Nothing against women in the wrestling or around the wrestling business, but sometimes the girls that put on those kick pads, they can be a handful.
Head cases, yes. I'll just say it. But it's one thing to be a guy in wrestling, but what happened to you to be a girl in wrestling?
And it's not to discredit it because and so much great stuff is happening with women's wrestling, but
Well, I'm not even talking about the wrestlers themselves. I'm just the fans.
It's just. But I think it's difficult because we're still in a male-dominated business. We're not the same people we were when we came into wrestling.
Absolutely not.
So to see the transition, even though women's revolution, everything great is going forward, to know how does that change a female who has who has to experience all the things that we do? What does that do to them? What does that do to their mentality?
Changes everybody, especially at the WWE level. It changes everybody.
Makes them calloused and scarred and kind of
you become. I feel like a walking zombie at some point. We all would talk about this at different points, different guys there, and where we'd come off the road, and it's usually there was a big stretch where it was 5 days on, a day and a half home, and you do laundry, you get a workout in, do what you have to do, pay your bills, wake up after 3 hours sleep, back on the road, and repeat. And my first year in WWE is a blur with all that. But people would ask me in the airport, come back, like, hey, where were you just at? And I would just look at them, and I couldn't even think of the towns I was just in because you just block it all out.
Sure.
It's just city. It's,
Gym,
airport arena,
Sure.
arena, rental car. It's the same thing every single time, and you just eventually know when you're home because you love being home. And but it definitely changes you over the years, and you have to. I think that's what you have to do that to survive.
So what are you saying with the love of your life, apparently?
No, so we a lot of potential with this one,
Okay.
more so than a lot of people. And
Did you lift weights together, or
we the first day in, we went and she wanted to go work out together. I go, you want to go work out?
you want to have protein?
I don't have. I thought you're going to sleep in. I was just going to go. She was like, no, could I? And I go, okay, but and let me go do my whole workout. She went and did her whole thing. It was beautiful. I was like, man, this is what's wrong with her. And then later that night, we went to the Chappelle show
Okay.
Which she's taken me out of my comfort zone because I feel like this since I've
Because you
left.
stay at home all day.
Since I've left WWE, like I have a gym at home, everything. Like unless it's to go get food or like I like being in and just being normal and just something about I think when you leave there, you have control of how much you can go out.
But it's kind of cool to get to see a person pull you out of your routine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's again me. Because I'm very stubborn and set in my ways on certain things. But I do realize at this point I need to start. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, and not to say like I've gone to a show or two in Vegas before, but I tend to avoid the Strip. I live away from it 30 minutes, and she was like, "Let's go to the Chappelle show," and I go, "Yeah, I wouldn't mind going to that actually." And the thing that caught me off guard next was she bought the tickets, and what are you doing? And she goes, you can pay me for your ticket if you want. She goes, I don't feel comfortable, you buying, because you flew me out here and stuff, and and I was, you don't want me to pay for the tickets? And like I've had past experiences with people where I just pay for everything, and again I'm going, what's wrong with this girl? Like,
Wrestling star, you better pay for everything.
Yeah, and so we go to the Chappelle show and dress all up and put on the suit for the first time in a while, and she dresses up nice, and we go in, and the first thing I noticed, I was telling you, which I think WWE should do this for their shows, and is we all know like social media and cell phones have taken over people's lives, and they're very, very addictive. Well, for these shows, the first thing I noticed on the tickets, no cell phones allowed, and I wonder how they're going to do that. They can't take everybody's cell phone from them. And you go in through the metal detectors, and there were thousands of people at this. It was the Kevin Hart Heartbeat weekend in Vegas. He did the opening thing the first night, wasn't supposed to be there the second night, but you go in, and it's called Vondr, VONDR, and it's these little foam pouches, and they put your phone in it, and it has a little magnetizing lock that they twist and lock, and if you need to get into your phone during the show, you go back up, and they have people that can open them for you up there.
Cool. Yeah,
and
yeah.
you can, but you can't be on your phone while you're in there. And if they catch you using your keys and you're
toss.
gone. No questions asked. And
So
Chappelle,
should we collect people's cell phones right now?
it was really refreshing because even when I walked in here and was watching Colt's show a little bit ago, I'm on my phone.
I was too, and I felt.
And I look around and I see
that.
a few people, and it's like it's just what we do.
It's not being rude. It's just what we're so used to,
But Chappelle was talking about that he kind of got turned off of the comedy for a while, and he took a break because it's social media. For comedians, they say very controversial things, and say one thing about this and making a joke, and he's getting attacked by those people.
And then you're not booked. It affects your life and all.
And so to me, I'm like, oh, I'm glad they get it too,
Yeah.
But it's everybody, and he just said that. Unfortunately for you guys, you can't use your phones tonight. And he goes, I'm going to say all the fucked up shit I want. And he told the best jokes out. And it was like, but it was just, the crowd was so engaged and thousands of people. And because everybody was paying attention, I was like, WWE should 100% do that for every one of their events. Not independent shows necessarily, because you probably want the attention. They don't need the attention from the other. It's just, and if you need to get in your phone, you go up, up the
just
stairs.
to have that experience, people have to watch.
I had the best time of my life because I wasn't on my phone at all for the 3 hours we were there. But when we left, I was telling her with Paloma, I'm walking, I go, why is this line going so slow getting out of here? And we look around, everybody is on their phones.
Sure.
Just thousands of people. It was like The Walking Dead. And I'm just like, man, it's as great as technology is, it's just something feels so off about this that it's so addicting. And I don't know what to make of it, but it was, I told you later that night, because she paid for the tickets.
Did you pay her back?
What's that?
Did you pay her back?
So that's where I was going with this, is they had the ATMs at the hotel that we went to go watch the show. And I'm in now. Remind you, I have quite a few suits, the custom made ones by David Allen that I got while I was with WWE, and this guy makes tremendous suits. But he'll do some like crazy things too.
Well, like bright colors,
different colors, different pattern schemes.
So a flashy suit, kind of.
Yeah. So I went with I was going to go with a black pinstripe, but unfortunately, I told you this, my black dress shoes, I have a really nice pair of black dress shoes and a really nice pair of brown ones for the different colored suits. And then I have a normal pair of black ones, but they're not my favorite.
Okay.
And I had a nice watch, a dress shoes, and my belt stolen out of my bag from New York, of all places, several months before. And I just discovered it when I was going to go look. I go, where are my dress shoes? And I was, oh no. And I told her what I wanted to wear. I go, I got to wear my brown shoes. I'm not wearing those black shoes out. And,
That guy's a big fashion diva. Okay.
Yeah. And so the only thing that would really go, she liked the blue suit with a pink shirt and a pink tie with the brown shoes.
So you're going like Michael Hayes style, like
Little,
just kind of standing
slightly
out.
Michael Hayes style for this. Hey, look at me, everybody. And she's wearing a nice sparkly dress. And remind you, we're in Las Vegas. And she's a very, very attractive, beautiful.
And she's showing off her figure, I imagine.
Yeah,
Nice.
hell of a figure.
What is she wearing? Like a nice sparkly dress of something, or?
Yeah, and it's appropriate length and everything, but she's works out, she's in shape.
Showing some skin.
Yeah, very attractive. And I'm not thinking anything. I'm just minding her own business. I go to the ATM and I pull out the money to reimburse her for my portion of the ticket. And I guess I'm zoned out doing the transaction. There's people behind us, and I guess one of them had recognized me, and they were talking about how I was with a hooker. So, and that I get the money out, and I go, here's your money. And she goes, no, keep it. And I go, no, it's yours. And we're having this conversation. Like, she goes, no. And I don't. No,
Zoned out.
What the fuck are we doing? You just told me to come to the ATM. I'm getting your money. And she's like, just walk. And I go, what's going on? She goes, those people were talking. They recognized you. They thought you were paying me for the night. And I go, so just go with it. Like, just to give them a story. But it was a very awkward big guy dating moment again. But the following day is she drugged me out to Red Rock Canyon, which if you've ever been out to Las Vegas, it's very beautiful. I recommend it to everybody. And but I think we're going out there to do a little hike, maybe take some pictures for social media.
Okay.
You know, you can. Oh, I went hiking for 5 hours. But
Take a selfie or two.
Yeah, take a selfie or two. We'll go to the buffet after, go get some food and make a day of it. I was planning on going and working out, after. And we get out there and we get to Trail 1. There's many trails through this canyon. And Trail 1, and it has names, and I apologize, I don't know the name, but we go down and we start going, and we go for like an hour.
Okay.
And but I'm like, all of a sudden I'm in like my Nike Air Maxes, and I wore the long athletic pants out there, and it wasn't overly hot, but it was hot. And I'm like, find myself climbing these goddamn huge fucking rocks, like putting myself in danger, and to get pictures for this girl. And I'm like, what is going on right now? I think I like her.
Oh, boy.
Because I like look down at one point. I go, if I fall off, I'm dying. And to me, I was like, oh, I think I really like this girl. Because I normally would just say, I'm not fucking doing this.
Yeah.
Why would I need to do this? And we do it, and we get pictures of different moments out there. And I'm thinking, hell of a day. This is great. I've had a good time. I survived. Let's go eat.
Sure.
And we get back in my truck, and I think we're going to drive, just look around a little bit. It takes like 30 minutes to get out of there from where we're at. And she's like, oh, we missed our next stop. I go, what do you mean our next stop? And she goes, well, I wanted to go do a whole other trail and go to this. And she shows me the map that we have. And it's, I just knew the trail that we did. And I go, wow, that's really long. I go, she goes, oh yeah, it's all day. And I go, all day? I go, I got to eat. She goes, well, I asked you if you wanted to bring snacks. I go, I didn't hear that. I thought we were just going to go to the buffet after. So I'm thinking it's an hour. And
So how long? A couple hours?
so we have to keep driving on. We pull over at the next stop. We backtrack. We walk back to the next trail that we missed that I drove past. And she told me we stop. I go, how far are we going again? And she goes, well, we have to go to this point first, all these different rocks. And she goes, and then we got a really long hike. I go, remind you, we're in the desert. We're following the trail. There's rattlesnake holes everywhere out there. But you're on the trail, so it's minimized a little bit. No big deal. It's hot. They're not going to come out during the day. But it's the night. It's
Petrifying.
Yeah.
It's a workout.
But and again, I know me. If I'm by myself, I'm scared. But in front of her, I can't act like
be
a
a
pussy.
man. Yeah.
I got to be Ryback with the goddamn snake, and I probably get bitten and just die. But
Might be worth it. You go for
yeah.
it.
So we keep going. We finally get to these rocks. We get all these cool pictures again on these new rocks, and we're having a good time. And it's getting hotter and hotter. And I go, that seems really far. And I don't want to puss out of this, because I was like, I got to be a man. If I act like I need to get back, like she's going to think I'm so low of me that like she flew her out here. She really wanted to go hiking on this. I have to finish this damn thing. But I'm just trying to think, how do I get out of this? Like, we can't, if we go on, it's going to be, darkness is approaching where these snakes are going to be out of their holes. And it wasn't one or two. Hundreds of snake holes. So finally, we had to climb to get to these rocks uphill quite a bit. We went off trail for a while to save a little time. She got tired, and luckily I could see the fatigue in her, and all we had was a little Feed Me More Nutrition half-gallon water jug, sharing it between the two of us. And I was like, oh, she's tired. And I go, well, do you want to keep going? She goes, maybe we should head back.
So you beat her with cardio.
Yes,
All right.
and I cannot preach enough the conditioning, how it applies to every area.
It'll
of
get
life.
you out of life's
she
challenges.
fatigued and got tired, and I go, yeah. I wanted to keep going, but if you want to go back, we can go back.
So the moral of the story is, if you want to get out of things with your girlfriend, just train better and cardio.
Train harder. Don't be a lazy piece of shit. Do your conditioning, because it can save you in situations. But we went back. We went off the trail going back to save time. She goes, let's go off the trail. We'll save a little bit of time. And we're walking. She goes, yeah, we better. She stops, and there's like 6 or 7 snake holes all around us. She goes, we better jog. This isn't good. And I go, what do you mean it's not good? And she goes, well, we're not on the trail. I go, well, what? Well, let's go back on the trail. But we're already so far out. She goes, well, I don't know where it's at now. And well, run. Like, there's brushes everywhere, and like, this is, and I will fucking run. And we just run all the way back till we get finally, like 20 minutes, just jogging and jumping over brushes. I'm just picturing this huge rattlesnake just coming at me at any point. And but we made it back. We got to the truck. I didn't work out for the day because it ended up being a 4-hour damn hike in the middle of the desert out there. And we got food, and recommend to everybody out there, I don't know if anybody here, Black Mirror on Netflix. She turned me on to that. Everybody listening, I highly recommend you check that out. We finished a couple seasons of that to close out the night. So the big guy dating tales continue. She's actually coming back out this week because she lives in Orlando, and with everything going on with Hurricane Irma. And again, I hope everybody and that whole Florida region I can't even imagine having to even think about losing everything that you have. And obviously the news doesn't help out with all that and scaring people and people that I know that live there. But she's coming to stay with me, because rather than go home and fly into that situation today. So she will be with me for part of the week or the week, depending, I guess, on how everything goes with Irma. So.
All right. Very cool. Big Guys Find in Love. We're in a condensed form, so I know we don't keep everyone all day. But what do you say? I don't know if anyone here has any questions. We appreciate you guys coming out. If anyone does, we gladly take them before
we're doing live questions.
We wrap things up. I'm throwing things off. I want to wake up the room a little bit. So if anyone has anything, we'd be happy to answer them. If not, we'll just continue to drink and babble and wrap this up. So,
I'll close out with my tips of the week. I always got to get the tips of the week in, just so it's not all wrestling.
What do we got? What do you got, buddy?
I'm not from New York. I'm actually from Atlanta, Georgia, and I was actually down with my mom at, I think, Hell in a Cell 2012, where you faced Punk, and Brad Maddox was the special guest referee. And I was loving the whole pay-per-view, and I saw the point where you picked him up for a shell shock, and then Brad just got in front of you and did that. And all of a sudden, Low Blow roll up, and everyone was just flipping out, like, what just happened? Like, why did this happen? And I understood like the story part of it, but what happened like backstage? Like, did they tell you before it, or did you have to go along with it?
So just in case before you answer, you was talking about 2012, Hell in the Cell. He was there in the building, and what happened backstage after, or lead, I guess, before or after, you wanted to know?
I think like both if possible. Like, did they tell you beforehand? Or
Yeah, what he's asking is for 2012 Hell in a Cell, the whole process of with that finish and everything going on, did I know anything about it before? What happened afterwards? And no, I didn't. And it was a really, really tough thing for me that day because I was in a really tough situation going into that match. Me and Punk had been working live events. They don't let you know anything there typically. Punk maybe knew. I was just being introduced to the main event. And I found out that day, Punk multiple times had went back into Vince's office. I was at a position where I wasn't as comfortable as I am now, or my final few years there, where you kind of got to build up to that relationship and whatnot. And I knew I didn't know what the plan was. I didn't know if you hear Jinder Mahal talking about, he found out before he was going to win the championship. And so there's one aspect where you never want to get too high or too low. I was, will they do? I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket, so I was prepared for either. And up to that point, everything had been great. And I just remember when they came out, and I don't remember who told me. A lot of this is kind of a blur, too. It kind of started that whole process for me of all that, where it didn't necessarily go my way. And I just remember it did not feel right when they told me what we were doing.
Do you think that the original, we've never talked about this before, do you think the original, that at some point the decision probably was that you were going to?
I don't know.
You just don't know.
I mean, I have no way of knowing. It could have been. You never know. Things change there all the time. And I mean, and again, Chris Jericho.
'Cause it does feel like that night should have been the night, correct? Like
100%.
That was the night.
And if you remember during that period, Chris Jericho had made mention that they got something here special and to capitalize on it. And again, in his new book, you sent me the message yesterday with what he wrote about it in his new book. About
he wanted to work a program with you, thinking it would go to you to Taker.
They had already, and I've talked about all this time and time before, why I feel everything happened the way that it did. But I was not in a position where I could say, I'm not going to do this because I'm brand new and I was being introduced into this main event role, and they want to see if you could perform at that level, and I had to trust the process at that point, and that's not to say that to me, I don't know what a better alternative was on it. The match, if he was going over the entire time, well, at least that's kind of an out.
It's an out. Yeah.
It's an out. And they have me destroying the referee, and they're giving me the moment at the end of the night on top of the cage, which did send the crowd home happy. But it kind of started that process of beating the unbeatable, where then we just saw the unbeatable be beaten for 7 months, but still somehow remained very popular during that period. But it was it was tough. It was really, really tough. And again, just to kind of, this question brings up stuff. I remember during that point, it was never, Ryback we never want you wrestling over 10 minutes. You destroy people and this and that, or you never wrestle over 6 minutes. And we'd kept that formula, but then you're putting me against Punk, and then, well, we need you to do 16 in the cage. Well, you just said you don't want me ever doing more than, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The whole thing was just so fucked up from letting this natural thing play out and just keep working the way that it was. And then you're making me another guy, wrestling this other guy's style, rather than staying and protecting all your investments across the board. And when Cena went down with the injury, it's cool. You're getting a main event opportunity. You're getting better money. So you focus on the positives during that. But it felt really, really wrong from a creative standpoint with all of that. And it feels good to see you being in the building and hearing others, because I heard moments like that multiple times throughout my career, and it's really tough as a performer. But I'm thankful at the same time, because it motivated me to drive me to do these other things that I've had success in because of moments like that. So,
all right. Anyone else? All right, move on, big guy.
Let's
close
do that.
out.
I think we're going to close out here with our tips of the week this week.
Tips of the week. Yay!
As always, with everybody, and I always do my match of the week, and hopefully we get it up soon because I want everyone to see it, especially people that hate me, is Ryback versus AR Fox. Is my
Such
match.
a humble big guy.
No, because
Okay.
AR Fox has a hell of a performance, and I want everybody to see him.
He needs to be given a chance too. I think Fox needs to be given a chance.
Absolutely, he should be in WWE.
Yeah.
100%. It's the guy, beyond being extremely talented, he's you could just tell talking to a guy, like, he's a good human being.
Yeah.
And everybody I've talked to who I'm friends with, like, how did you like working with him? He's a hell of a guy, right? And like,
And I know outside things, people go, well, he can't be here for this reason. And it's
2017.
like, who cares, you know?
Nobody, he should be in WWE. And I know he's under contract, I think, right now and whatnot. But he should be given the chance at some point in his, I think he just turned 30, and he should be given an opportunity because the guy, he's,
Good.
yeah, he'll be worth the investment. Quote of the week this week: "Be yourself. No one can say you're doing it wrong." Charles M. Schultz. And I think that's, I try to, I'm big on quotes, as you know. I think that's, nobody can tell you you're doing it wrong. I think he nailed the nail on the head with that one. My book of the week: The Amazon Sales Formula by Michael D. Marini. Again, I try to read books that can directly help me and with Feed Me More Nutrition. And being on Amazon, it is a process, and it's learning with advertising and things. And there's a lot of people out there that want to be. I'm big on that entrepreneur mindset and being our own bosses. And Amazon is a very complicated thing. There's a lot of competition, and you need to have all your ducks in a row on there. And if you are interested in Amazon or are an Amazon seller, I highly recommend that book. Nutrition tip of the week. In New York, you're big on this. If you have these in your area, Muscle Maker Grill, I think, is the best place for healthy food. Would you agree with that?
I think so. I mean, there's 150 locations, I think, across the states, but to get there, like,
They have a couple in Vegas now too, and I keep forgetting I got to go to it. It's because I usually have them when I'm back east. I recommend the Rocky Balboa. Is that what?
yeah, that's one of the popular wraps. But just given, avoid the McDonald's. Find your Muscle Maker Grill. There's all these health food things where people go, but it's delicious. We're finding better ways of eating that are still, oh man, I enjoy this even more than fast food, which is true with Muscle Maker Grill.
I was going to today, and I went to the hotel breakfast, and I was not pleased with what they had left. And so I was like, it's my keto day, which keto is no carb. And I typically when I'm home, I can control a little healthier options. But on the road, one of my go-tos for breakfast is the sausage egg McMuffins without the bread, just the egg.
So you order the sausage McMuffin, you throw the bread out, and you just eat the meat?
Yeah.
Egg and meat?
But I was thinking, because I've talked to you about this before, that when you go to these places and you say no bun or no muffin, what?
What? Yeah.
Just the meat. What do you mean just the meat? Just the meat, no bread.
What's wrong with you?
They really. Well, why wouldn't you eat the bread? Yeah, it's just okay. Give me the fucking bread. Like, and then you get to the window and, sir, this is going to be a while. Please pull forward. And like you have to go pull forward. And it's like this huge ordeal more times than not.
There's a psychopath outside. He
And
doesn't want the
today
fun.
I finally am sitting there and it just came to me. I go, why the fuck don't they just have an a la carte menu with like sausage patty, 99 cents, just egg, 99 cents, chicken breast, 99, whatever you're going to charge, so that it can just be, I feel like it's 2017 and enough people, it would help things out so much, because the workers obviously don't know the difference, and like when no bread, and it's just, but that came to me today, and I was like, I'm going to say this on the podcast, and hopefully somebody.
So you want McDonald's to open up a special?
I just want an a la carte menu.
Special big guy menu?
Just a meat menu, just with no bread, just a la carte. They have the buttons on there already. Just put the options, because it'll help your business. Keto, I can go get 2 chicken breasts there or a sausage patty. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And not deal with the damn headache at the window. But my workout and fitness tip of the week, I told you about this the other day. I'm a big listener on the Joe Rogan podcast. I like his little YouTube clips.
Sure.
And just the little short segments. I can kind of choose what I want to listen to. And he always has the MMA guys on there, and I really admire the MMA training.
Because of conditioning.
Because I've done it, and it is truly, it's a very grueling experience, but it's very pleasurable at the same time. But it's like wrestling, that people don't understand the level of conditioning that goes into wrestling. MMA is a whole other animal too, because it's in wrestling, if you maybe get a little tired, you have ways around it.
It's by choice. So like if we get tired, we know how to work around that to get it back. MMA, I guess MMA, you can have strategy.
You could say they have different ways, but it's at the same time, it's a very real fight going on.
But you could be forced in a situation where it's like, hey,
where
you
you're
know?
tired, but you're in a position where you can't control it, and
Yeah.
you're trying not to get killed.
Where I've been in matches before, I've been myself or someone else, like, hey, give me like 10 seconds. I just can't get my wind back.
Yeah.
And like, same thing with the opponents, like, I can't breathe.
You've
and
done
you know,
that?
to work. I've done that. I've plenty
Jesus
of times
Christ,
I've done
I'm
that.
a little disappointed in you.
Roll into the ring, throw up, get back in the ring again.
So I was listening to one of these guys on there, and they were talking about, I'm really big on the burpees and different things where you really, really expend a lot of energy and you just really push yourself, because it makes wrestling way easier. And they were talking about treadmill sprints, which I was doing years ago too. But what I do is I told you this week, I go, do your burpees and then go do treadmill sprints where you go 1 minute on an incline, at least level 4, and in sprinting anywhere from 7, 8, 9, 10 and up. I usually do a minute at 7, a minute at 8, a minute at 9, but you go as hard as you can on the incline. And what I do, if I do level 7 on a 4 incline, 1 minute as hard as I can, hop off, turn the speed down to level 3, walk for a minute, back up, bam, do another minute, level 8 on a 5 incline. And you don't have to do a lot of them, anywhere 5, 6 sets, but it will truly, it pushes your conditioning to a whole new level. And I directly even notice a better improvement from my last match, just adding those in again. So I think for all the wrestlers out there that tune in and people just interested in having better performance, I feel like that if you're able to do it and you're healthy, doing those treadmill sprints will really, really push you and make you a better athlete, I feel like. Because conditioning creates confidence, and I'm a firm believer in that. So
all right, very
that's
cool.
all the tips of the week.
I want to thank everybody for coming out here today. I want to thank the Now Hear This Podcast Festival, Mid-Roll, Mac Weldon for having us on this lovely stage. I'd like to thank Cole Cabana, Sam Roberts for being a part of this day. And also for you guys, and we didn't really, if you guys are out here, come to WrestleProOnline.com. We have shows in New York, New Jersey area. But thank you. I'm Buck Never Stops across all platforms.
Thank you guys very much. I am Ryback22 on Twitter, the Big Guy Ryback22 on Instagram, Ryback247 on Snapchat, and Feed Me More Nutrition, as always, on Amazon and feedmemore.com. Thank you guys very much. You've just listened to another episode of Conversation with the Big Guy.